the way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but free people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us. This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.
Write your thoughts, dreams, and Write your thoughts, dreams, and affirmations into existence with this powerful, practical reparations manifestation planner. Put 2023 plans into action with purpose.
The proofs are hot off the press and look fire, fam. Perfect planner to write reparations manifestations and any other New Year's resolutions, goals, and achievable aspirations. It's been stated, if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book or write it down. Let's break those stereotypical trash tropes.
Conjure our justice claim collectively in 2023. Believe it and achieve it. Cut the check. Reparations Now Planner. Available now at Amazon.com. Write it into existence this year with fam and friends. Okay, we are back in the news. Yeah, so the planners are hot off the presses. They've been best-selling on Amazon. I hope everybody got their planners and are manifesting their reparations manifestations. So let's get started here. First up, sad news. I'm sure everyone has heard about the Tyrie Nichols police brutality and murder incident that happened not long ago. Before Tyrie Nichols was a martyr, he was a Sacramento kid who didn't see color. So he's a Sacramento native from where we are in the capital city here. Through it all, the family of Tyrie Nichols put on their brave faces Wednesday in that church in Memphis, Tennessee. They echoed the calls for justice for their 29-year-old son, father, and brother who died after being savagely beaten by police last month. They took solace in the swiftness of justice, knowing that the officers involved have already been fired and charged with murder. And they noted, along with anger, that too often Black people aren't seen for our humanity. I see the world showing him love and fighting for his justice, Nichols' sister, Kiana Dixon, said through tears, quote, but all I want is my brother back, end quote. Indeed, this was a funeral for a distraught family, but it also was a funeral for a distraught Memphis. In the same way George Floyd, killed by Minneapolis police, is inextricably tied to that city, and Rodney King, beaten by Los Angeles police, is inextricably tied to our city. Nichols and his legacy are now tied to Memphis. He's now an unwitting martyr in an increasingly desperate and seemingly never-ending mission to finally put a stop to police brutality. So with this story here, unfortunate story, ashe to Tyrie Nichols. As they stated, justice was swift. The officers were fired and charged with murder. And as we know, this case was a little bit different. Anyone who's following it, in that all of the officers involved were Black, or at least all of the officers that were fired immediately were Black. It turns out a 6-officer surfaced that was at the scene who also tased him, who was white, who was not in the initial roundup of officers that were fired in this case. I think he's been suspended or something, but yeah, he was not lumped into this group.
Yeah, that's, typical here in America. Where white officers, predominantly white officers, will get, some leniency.
Right. It's like pulling teeth to get any justice when it's white officers, Yeah. So.
Burt Bacharach, legendary composer of pop song, dies at 94. Burt Bacharach, the singularly gifted and popular composer who delighted with the quirky arrangements and unforgettable melodies of Walk On By, Do You Know the Way to San Jose, and dozens of other hits, has died at 94. The Grammy, Oscar, and Tony winning Bacharach died Wednesday at his home in Los Angeles of natural causes, publicist Tina Browsome said Thursday. Over the past 70 years, only Lennon, McCartney, Carole King, and a handful of others rivaled his genius for instantly catchy songs that remained performed, played, and hummed long after they were written. He had a run of top 10 hits from the 1950s into the 21st century, and his music was heard everywhere from movie soundtracks and radios to home stereo systems and iPods, whether Alfie and I Say a Little Prayer or I'll Never Fall in Love Again and This Guy's in Love with You. Dionne Warwick was his favorite interpreter, but Bacharach, usually in tandem with lyricist Hal David, also created prime material for Aretha Franklin, Dusty Springfield, Tom Jones, and many others. Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and Frank Sinatra were among the countless artists who covered his songs, with more recent performers who sung or sampled him, including White Stripes, Twista, and Ashanti. Walk On By alone was covered by everyone from Warwick and Isaac Hayes to the British punk band The Stragglers and Cyndi Lauper.
That's quite a catalog.
Yeah, there's, as he was saying, a lot of people, probably at least within the Black community, may not know Burt Bacharach, but he was definitely influential in terms of, especially during the 70s and 80s. I think he even wrote the song with On My Own, who I believe it was Michael McDonald and Patti LaBelle sang that song. I think that was in the 80s or 90s. I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember that one. He was definitely a hit maker.
Yeah, for sure. May rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Husband of slain New Jersey Councilwoman Eunice Drumfour posts bizarre birthday Facebook post. And this article was from February 3rd. I was looking for updates on the slain councilwoman from New Jersey. The Nigerian husband of slain New Jersey Councilwoman Eunice Drumfor was gunned down Wednesday near her Sayreville home, made a bizarre Facebook post Friday morning wishing his deceased wife a happy birthday, even though it's still more than a month away. 4th March is your birthday. Happy, glorious birthday. And Addie, my love, wrote Drumfor's husband, who works as a pastor and identifies himself by the name Ease Kings on social media site. He punctuated the post with a series of hearts and attached about a dozen photos of the couple, which prominently featured Drumfor's wedding ring. The post had garnered about 150 comments, many of which expressed shock and sadness at Drumfor's death. Authorities pronounced the 30-year-old single mother dead on Wednesday after an unknown gunman shot her multiple times as she drove her white Nissan near the Camelot and Lemire apartment complex. Neither local police nor the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office has named any suspects, although a report from ABC7 in New York said investigators are digging into the ties to her husband's church overseas in Nigeria, among other things. Authorities also brought in police dogs to search the woods behind the apartment complex for the murder weapon, ABC said. Neighbors believe they have seen the gunman, may have seen the gunman flee toward the nearby Gateway State Parkway, a major artery that runs up and down New Jersey. Police at the scene told the Post Drumfor, a Newark native, was caught on video speaking to the shooter moments before her death. The family told the Post Friday morning they are cooperating with authorities as they investigate what happened. Quote, "I can't say anything about it unless the investigation is finished," end quote, said Prince Drumfor, the councilwoman's father. When asked whether Drumfor's absent husband would be coming, he paused and said, "All these things are you're asking, it will come out eventually." So may she rest in peace. There's still a lot of unanswered questions to this story.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. I mean, I know some people may feel a certain way, and more evidence will come out as the case goes on, but
yeah, and I mean,
that's
as I was
crazy.
even searching for updates on this story this morning to see if they've found any more information, it appears another New Jersey council member has been shot. Looked like a white guy, but they said that might have been like workplace violence. So they know who the shooter is in that case, but it's dangerous occupation to be a council member in New Jersey right now.
Jeez. Survival struggle to stay warm, fed in earthquake aftermath. Tens of thousands of people who lost their homes in a catastrophic earthquake huddled around campfires in the bitter cold and clamored for food and water Thursday, 3 days after the Timblor hit Turkey and Syria and killed more than 19,300. Emergency crews used pickaxes, shovels, and jackhammers to dig through the twisted metal and concrete and occasionally still pulled out survivors. But in some places, their focus shifted to demolishing unsteady buildings. While stories of miraculous rescues briefly buoyed spirits, the grim reality of the hardship facing survivors cast a pall over devastated communities. The number of deaths surpassed the toll of a 2011 earthquake of Fukushima, Japan, that triggered a tsunami, killing more than 18,400 people. In northwest Syria, the first UN aid trucks to enter the rebel-controlled area from Turkey since the quake arrived, underscoring the difficulty of getting help to people in the country riven by civil war. In the Turkish city of Antakya, dozens scrambled for aid in front of a truck distributing children's coats and other supplies. One survivor, Emmett Tokgos, called for the government to evacuate people from the region. Many of those who have lost their homes found shelter in tents, stadiums, and other temporary accommodation, but others have slept outdoors. Especially in this cold, it is not possible to live here. He said, if people haven't died from being stuck under the rubble, they'll die from the cold.
What a tragedy.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's just awful. China accuses U.S. of indiscriminate use of force over balloon, and this article was written February 6, 23. China on Monday accused the United States of indiscriminate use of force in shooting down a suspected Chinese spy balloon, saying it, quote, seriously impacted and damaged both sides' efforts and progress in stabilizing Sino-U.S. relations, end quote. The U.S. shot down the balloon off the Carolina coast after it traversed sensitive military sites across North America. China insisted the flyover was an accident involving a civilian aircraft. Vice Foreign Minister Ai Feng said he lodged a formal complaint with the U.S. Embassy on Sunday over the, quote, U.S. attack on a Chinese civilian unarmed airship by military force, end quote. Quote, however, the United States turned a deaf ear and insisted on indiscriminate use of force against the civilian airship that was about to leave the United States airspace, obviously overreacted and seriously violated the spirit of international law and international practice, I said. The presence of the balloon in the skies above the U.S. dealt a severe blow to already strained U.S.-Chinese relations that have been in a downward spiral for years. It prompted Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to abruptly cancel a high-stakes Beijing trip aimed at easing tensions. I repeated China's insistence that the balloon was a Chinese civil unarmed airship that blew into U.S. airspace by mistake, calling it, quote, an accidental incident caused by force majeure, end quote. China will, quote, resolutely safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese companies, resolutely safeguard China's interests and dignity, and reserve the right to make further necessary responses, he said, end quote, he said. So sounds like it was all one big misunderstanding, according to this guy, the spokesperson.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know exactly what's going on with this since this article was written on the 6th of February. The last thing I recall is the balloon was shot down, as this article states. Now, if it was supposedly a spy balloon, I think that needs to be further investigated on. I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that initially China said it was some like science balloon or something like that.
Is that what they said? Because he's talking about some kind of aircraft in this article. What's he calling it? Civilian airship.
Yeah, so he said something like, it was a mistake or something like. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the evidence comes about. But China's doing what China's doing.
All right. I mean, but it seems like they are the ones with the indignant attitude. I mean, your balloon is in our space.
That is very true. By accident or not. Biden's State of the Union address ignored Black American, critics say. From calling for the police to be funded to making fleeting references to issues that disproportionately affect Black people, the president's speech left much to be desired. President Joe Biden delivered a strong, middle-of-the-road State of the Union address on Tuesday night, seemingly aimed at galvanizing moderate, bipartisan support that still managed to be glaringly devoid of any real mention of issues specifically facing Black America. It was tantamount to making a U-turn from the pro-Black lane Biden has been cruising in since the 2020 campaign trail after he made repeated appeals for support from the Black voters who ultimately secured his election. The speech even included language espoused by the same Republicans who have tirelessly and repeatedly blocked legislation that would address the very issues polling shows are of the utmost importance to Black America. Journalist Charles Blow noted on the Black News Channel that Biden made strong remarks about Black people during his speech, marking his first 100 days in the office, but on Tuesday night, a little more than 1 year in the White House, Biden said, quote, not one word, end quote, about Black people. Blow said, while finding irony in how the president went from lamenting the murder of George Floyd to calling for funding the police during his address.
So crickets, huh? He didn't say nothing about reparations. I didn't watch it. He didn't mention reparations at all in his address.
Yeah, from what I've been able to research and then what I actually did hear, because I'll admit I didn't hear the whole address, but from what I did hear, I didn't hear anything about reparations.
Wow. All right. Well, we're definitely talking about reparations out here in California. Quite a few articles came out after the San Diego hearing that happened just a couple of weeks ago. It was out on the 27th of January. Yeah, that's right. Okay. A lot going on, family. California Reparations Task Force weighs long lists of harms and remedies. A task force working on proposals to the legislature for a sweeping package of reparations to Black state residents finished 2 days of hearings in San Diego, which showed the scope of the work the task force is undertaking. San Diego. By nearly any measure, be it the 485-page interim report issued in June, the dozens of meetings, the hours of testimony, the work of the state task force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans is sweeping and detailed. How best to quantify the efforts of slavery and systemic racism on Black Californians, from housing and health to environmental harm, policing and prisons and mental health. And if you can quantify how much money should be paid out in reparations and who should get it, and aside from the money, what larger changes have been made in government and society. The nine members of the task force, including San Diego City Councilwoman Monica Montgomery Stepp, wrestled with these questions over 2 days of public meetings on the San Diego State University campus that ended Saturday. They agreed on some proposals, debated others, and have more to do in upcoming meetings. By the end of June, the task force must deliver a final report to the state legislature with recommendations on what reparations package would entail. Those will just be recommendations. It will be up to legislators to adopt some or all of them in the future, and then up to state agencies to carry them out. The scope of the work led the task force on Saturday to decide to seek more time, while guaranteeing the report will be finished by June 30th. The task force adopted a measure that would extend its life for another year, which would be used to work to turn recommendations into laws and policies.
There you go. Well, speaking of the task force, California Reparations Task Force, there is a meeting scheduled for March 3rd and March 4th here in Sacramento, California. The location has yet to be determined, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right, some more of President Joe Biden. Biden 2024 question mark. Most Democrats say no thank you. So let's take a look at this article. A majority of Democrats now think one term is plenty for President Joe Biden, despite his insistence that he plans to seek re-election in 2024. That's according to a new poll from the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research that shows just 30% of Democrats say they want him to seek a second term, down from 52% in the weeks before last year's midterm elections. While Biden has trumpeted his legislative victories and ability to govern, the poll suggests relatively few U.S. adults give him high marks on either. Follow-up interviews with poll respondents suggest that many believe the 80-year-old's age is a liability, with people focused on his coughing, his gait, his gaffes, and the possibility that the world's most stressful job would be better suited for someone younger. Quote, I honestly think that he would be too old, end quote, said Sarah Overman, 37, a Democrat who works in education in Raleigh, North Carolina. Quote, we could use someone younger in the office, end quote. As the president gives the State of the Union address Tuesday, he has a chance to confront fundamental doubts about his competence to govern. Biden has previously leaned heavily on his track record to say that he's more than up to the task. When asked if he can handle the office's responsibility at his age, the president has often responded as if he's accepting a dare. Watch me. Overall, 41% approve of how Biden is handling his job as president. The poll shows similar to ratings at the end of last year. A majority of Democrats still approve of the job Biden is doing as president, yet their appetite for a re-election campaign has slipped despite his electoral track record. Only 22% of U.S. adults overall say he should run again, down from 29% who said so before last year's midterm elections. The decline among Democrats saying Biden should run again for president appears concentrated among younger people. Among Democrats aged 45 and over, 49% say Biden should run for election, nearly as many as the 58% who said that in October. But among those under age 45, 23% now say he should run for election after 45% said that before the midterms.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. One term is enough.
Yep.
All right. So, more news about reparations. California has been mean to Black people. State Reparations Task Force inches closer to final report. This is a CBS Sacramento report. The countdown is on for the State Reparations Task Force examines the harms of slavery and systemic racism. A final report is due by July. It is undoubtedly a touchy subject. Quote, California has been mean to Black people, end quote, said Dr. Amos C. Brown, lead pastor of Third Baptist Church. Dr. Brown is one of 9 members of the committee. He hopes his nation acknowledges the past, quote, that this nation ultimately before us immediately, that as a state and a city would make amends and correct the wrongs that were perpetrated against Black people, end quote, he said. Seeing eye to eye has not always happened during public meetings. In 2022, the First in the Nation panel restricted restitution to descendants of Black people in the U.S. before the end of the 19th century, freed or enslaved. While compensation talks grab headlines, a nearly 500-page interim report goes beyond money. Quote, the rules, the legislation, the policies, the procedures, everything that kept us back all those years is still prevalent today, end quote, said Assemblymember Reginald Byron Jones Sawyer, Sr. of the 57th Assembly District, who also is a task force member. Though California entered the Union as a free state, it has not always been a fair state. Even in 2023, critics say there are still remnants of slavery written into the Constitution. From housing to healthcare to political disenfranchisement and stolen property, the panel tackles policies and laws. As the committee holds public meetings throughout the state, the clock is ticking ahead of its deadline. Yes. Is atonement possible after centuries of mistreatment? Oh, not yet, but yet is atonement possible after centuries of mistreatment? That's a question. Yes, you can make atonement. Dr. Brown said, quote, you took things from us, you insulted our dignity, end quote. Meanwhile, members believe what they accomplished in the Golden State could be used as a template elsewhere. Quote, it should be used by every state, every municipality, and hopefully if there's a national reparations effort moving forward, they'll go back to California, end quote, Assemblymember Joan Sawyer Sr. said. The next public meeting for the Reparations Task Force is in March in Sacramento, and as my ETM partner just told you, that's going to be March 3rd and 4th, so mark your calendars for that.
All right. Disney to lay off 7,000 in blockbuster $5.5 billion cost-cutting move. The Burbank-based Walt Disney Company will slash 7,000 jobs in an effort to cut $5.5 billion in costs, CEO Bob Iger announced Wednesday. The job cuts amount to about 3% of the entertainment giant's global workforce and were announced Wednesday after Disney reported quarterly results that topped Wall Street's forecast. The long-rumored cuts are the last round of mass layoffs. Rolling? I think that says rolling. The tech and entertainment industries. It wasn't immediately clear where Disney's cutbacks would be concentrated, nor how the theme parks and entertainment divisions could be affected. Iger did not release details on how soon the layoffs would begin.
Wow, that's a lot of layoffs, and they're not saying who's getting laid off, huh? Said they're not saying where the layoffs will be concentrated, so
another corporation laying people off again. I mean, it's interesting, you know, and I think, don't quote me, but I think, you know, if not in this State of the Union speech that Biden was talking about, but in his upcoming interviews to the speech, I know he's been touting that the president, Joe Biden, has been touting that, you know, the work economy has, you know, is good, you know, and all that other stuff. But it's odd. It's like, if that's the case, then why are these companies like having all these layoffs, especially in the tech and entertainment?
Yeah, I mean, and where are these robust jobs that he keeps talking about? I mean, direct us to them.
Yeah, and sorry, family, Uber and Lyft does not count.
Yeah, sorry. All right, so more reparations news. With this reparations train just keeps on rolling. Mayor Darrell Steinberg is piloting a reparations program for Black Sacramento residents. Cities across California are pushing for reparations at a local level, including San Francisco, Oakland, and Los Angeles. Last week, the California Reparations Task Force held meetings in San Diego. During the hearing, Sacramento's mayoral team discussed their reparations pilot project. Sacramento is following suit as cities across the country are starting to push for reparations at a local level, including San Francisco, Oakland, and Los Angeles. Ahead of the hearing, ABC 10 spoke with Kelly Fong-Rivas, a senior advisor for Mayor Darrell Steinberg, whose primary focus is racial equity, public health, and safety, to learn more about the mayoral initiative. Quote, I think it's really important for any city to have a reparations program, end quote, said Rivas. quote, I think for Sacramento, it is also a little more important because we are the capital city of California, a state that is taking this on statewide. And it's important for us to show our community that we are so proud of, that we always talk about being so diverse, that we do take seriously our history and the importance of reconciling those harms that have happened, end quote. In June of 2021, Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg was invited to join the newly formed MORE Coalition, Mayors Organized for Reparations and Equity. That same month, the Sacramento City Council adopted a resolution supporting Assembly Bill 3121, a statewide task force to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans. The MORE Coalition is committed to racial and economic justice and is comprised of mayors from across the country who are working towards reparations for Black Americans at the city level. Rivas said the coalition has helped Steinberg's office inform their efforts to compensate Black residents affected by local systemic racism. Quote, reparations can be really complex topic, especially when you're talking about it at the federal level or at the state level here in California, or like for us, what does it look like at a local city government or municipal level, end quote, said Rivas. She said that for reparations to work at any level, there must be a specific argument and point of harm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you were the one who wrote the resolution, correct?
Yes.
Support. Okay, so shout out to Ms. Kemp for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I did think that it was important, for them to recognize the work that we're doing. I mean, I could see a lot of these quotes, which is good from this article, does show that they are listening to us. But as far as moving quickly, not really happening here in Sacramento. For instance, one of these lines says Sacramento is following suit. Sacramento should be leading the charge on this as the capital of California, in my opinion. But it seems like, they're just kind of waiting to see what other cities do before they really take any real action, in my opinion.
Doing the moonwalk, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here we go. Mississippi Republicans passed bill to create separate unelected court in majority Black city. The Republican-dominated Mississippi House of Representatives have passed a bill to create a separate unelected court system in the city of Jackson that would fall outside of the purview of the city's voters, the majority of whom are Black. The bill, which local leaders have linked to apartheid-era laws and described as unconstitutional, would also expand a separate Capitol Police force overseen by state authorities. The force would expand into all of the city's white majority neighborhoods. According to Mississippi Today, Jackson's population is over 80% Black. Speaking after House Bill 1020 passed on Tuesday evening, Jackson's Mayor Chokwe Lumumba branded the proposed law, quote, some of the most oppressive legislation in our city's history, end quote. It's oppressive because it strips the right of Black folks to vote. It's oppressive because it puts a military force over people that has no accountability to them. It's oppressive because there will be judges who will determine sentences over people's lives. It's oppressive because it redirects their tax dollars to something they don't endorse nor believe in, Lumumba said. The bill passed largely along party lines in a 76-38 vote and will now travel to the state Senate, where Republicans also hold a significant majority. The passage was preceded by an intense 4-hour floor debate in which members of the state's Black caucus made impassioned pleas to reject the legislation and compare the bill to the state's Jim Crow era Constitution of 1890. The legislation was proposed by House Republican Trey Lamar, who is white and represents a district in the state's Northwest, which is majority white. Lamar, who does not live in Jackson, has cited county court backlogs and crime rates in the city as his motivation for the proposed law. During floor debate, Lamar was asked if any of his constituents had asked for the bill. He replied, "I don't live in Jackson, but you know what I like to do. I like to come to Jackson because it's my capital city." The bill, which is over 1,000 pages long, would expand Jackson's existing Capitol Complex Improvement District, which is patrolled by the state's Capitol Police and currently covers parts of the city's downtown that house state government buildings. The district's expansion would cover areas in the city's north, which, according to local press, include entertainment and shopping neighborhoods. The new court district would feature 2 judges directly appointed by Mississippi Supreme Court Chief Justice Michael K. Randolph, who is white. There would be 2 pro-sectors appointed by the state attorney general, Lynn Finch, a white Republican, and 2 public defenders appointed by the state defender's office. Man, they're going straight rogue.
Yeah, so people who really have no jurisdiction are going to be making the decisions.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a question that I can't answer, but it's just nuts. Like, this is it seems to me like this is straight unconstitutional. I would like to hear from, a constitutional lawyer or a judge who's familiar with Mississippi's state laws, because this is just crazy. And it's been touted, or stated, I shouldn't say touted, but stated that some people who classify themselves as black want black people to move from the west side or north regions of the United States to the south. And things like this makes I would say individuals not want to move back down to the south.
And that's probably by, what the intention is. Oh, we've been hearing a lot about this reverse migration. We better do something to make it less appealing.
Yeah, obviously reparations is definitely needed in Mississippi, because Mississippi has had an overt, not just covert, but an overt racist and oppressive statewide legislative system. And even in this particular case, looks like at a local level with Jackson, it's just rearing its racist white supremacist head once again.
Yeah, I hear it's a good old boys club. Did they ever get the water situation fixed out there? That's what they need to be worrying about.
Tell me about it. I don't know. But if they haven't, they really need to be working on that ASAP.
Stat. So what we're worried about out here is, you guessed it, reparations. Sacramento Bee article. Sacramento is studying reparations for Black Americans, how you can help. The city of Sacramento is taking small steps towards creating a reparations plan for Black residents in an effort that mirrors one unfolding at a statewide task force. Mayor Darrell Steinberg launched the project in 2021 when he joined 11 other mayors around the country in creating a coalition, Mayors for Organized Reparations and Equity, MORE, committed to researching harms inflicted upon Black residents. Since then, his office has researched reparations programs in other cities and supported a grant-funded project that compiles personal narratives of African American families. His office has not yet asked the city council to spend money on the endeavor. Quote, "Our role over the last year and a half has been better understanding, reviewing, and doing all the work without necessarily spending city money yet," end quote, said Kelly Funk Rivas, senior advisor to Steinberg. The city's research is taking place as the California Reparations Task Force completes its charge to study discrimination against Black residents, and to recommend remedies. Last year, it released an interim report that recommended cash reparations for descendants for enslaved people and descendants of African Americans who can trace their ancestry to the 19th century California. The city of Sacramento, along with local municipalities, has been sharing updates on its planning with the California Reparations Task Force Committee at public hearings. San Francisco's Reparation Advisory Committee last month released a report urging payments of up to $5 million for certain residents. Fong Rivas said the city wants to determine what local government agencies have done to exclude Black residents from access to resources and opportunities through urban planning, design, and other policy decisions. She said it could take months or longer to develop the project before bringing it to council. So months or longer.
Yep.
Doesn't really sound like rapid relief.
Nope, sure doesn't. All right. Miami police thought a Black History Month squad car was a good idea. Despite very public stories about police needlessly targeting and sometimes killing Black people, Miami-Dade police thought the best way to celebrate Black History Month would be to splash an expensive tacky tone death wrap on a patrol car. Looks like there's some updates. This report originally indicated that this sort of tastelessness could only come from Florida, but we were wrong to underestimate Ohio. Columbus police were now also proud of owners of Black History themed police cruiser. We regret the error. The cruiser, unveiled Thursday, has strong graphic design and my passion vibes. The continent of Africa appears several times on a vehicle supposedly meant to celebrate Black Americans. Which did Miami of all places forget Black Caribbean Americans? Question. And that's just step one of the whole confusing and performative design. For me, the outline of raised fists on the side of the cruiser really takes the cake. The symbol of Black people's fight against oppression now graces the type of vehicle most closely associated with state oppression. The introduction of the cruiser occurred at the site of formerly segregated Miami police station, once meant for Black officers, Black judges, and Black offenders. The station closed in 1963 and is now a museum. It's from Channel News 7 News. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez and Miami Police Chief Manuel Morales were on hand at Thursday afternoon's unveiling as they came together and remember and honor history. This is a beautiful collaboration to commemorate Black History and Black History Month and history of African Americans and our police department and our city, said Suarez. This is Black History. The movement took place at the Black Police Precinct and Courthouse Museum along Northwest 11th Street. Right. These are the same Miami cops that told a Black driver, "This is how you guys get killed out here, man." When it took him a moment to find his paperwork last summer, the Miami cops who ticket white people for pot but arrest Black people for the same offense. Just last year, 3 Miami-Dade County police officers faced criminal battery charges in 3 separate incidents. In 2021, 3 more officers faced charges in the brutal arrest of 2 Black men. Or there's the Miami officer who punched a pregnant woman while she was experiencing a seizure in 2021. Politico even focused on Miami-Dade in a 2021 investigative report entitled "How Do Bad Cops Stay in Power?" Just look at Miami. In 2019, Miami police attacked a Black woman who called the cops for help. This cop car is a good indication that Florida shouldn't ban African American history classes, but instead should make them a requirement. The worst part is this custom wrap job likely costs taxpayers thousands of dollars while making the vehicle itself nothing more than a, quote, public outreach, end quote, vehicle. Likely never to see a moment in the line of duty while decorated in such a fashion.
More symbolism gone wrong.
Symbolism gone wrong.
And like they said, I mean, this just confirms the fact that they need to have Black history as mandated as part of their curriculum rather than, censoring it from the curriculum. I mean, whose idea was this?
Yeah, this is garbage. Like, with some of these law enforcement and also these government entities would actually put money and resources actually into the communities.
Right. This is just more unasked for symbolism. And it's performative. I mean, there's just this one car. I mean, shouldn't there be a fleet of these vehicles if they were really trying to, deploy them out as part of the department? Or is it just a vehicle that they're going to have posted up at fairs and festivals for more symbolism? Are you stopping for this car?
That's funny. Yeah, this is just some more symbolic gestures, and we need more tangibles.
Mm-hmm. All right. So back to reparations, and the big question: how to pay for reparations in California? Swollen wealth could replace stolen wealth through taxes. The panel responsible for the nation's first state-level exploration of reparations for Black Americans discussed an important question this weekend. How will the state pay for reparations? The California Reparations Task Force listened to testimony from experts who suggested possible sources for compensation after previous meetings had touched on potential for hundreds of thousands of dollars in monetary reparations for specific harms. The experts' suggestions included taxing the rich, such as through a state estate tax or a mansion tax, incentivizing the wealthy to help fund reparations by providing tax breaks akin to how charitable giving minimizes one's tax burden, or helping all taxpayers with below median wealth by means of tax credit, which would in turn help Black households. Suggestions from the expert testimony given at the task force meeting in San Diego State University on Friday could be incorporated into the body's final recommendations to the state legislature, which are due out this summer. Quote, "This is incredibly insightful and provocative," end quote, said Lisa Holder, a task force member. "It gives us a lot to think about." The experts' suggestions about possible sources of funding were based on their testimony that current U.S. tax law favors the wealthy, who are most likely to be white. Quote, "Our tax laws are written have a disparate impact," end quote, said Dorothy Brown, a tax professor at Georgetown Law and author of the book, quote, "The Whiteness of Wealth: How the Tax System Impoverishes Black Americans and How We Can Fix It," end quote. She said, "Black people are likely to pay higher taxes because they are less likely to gain access to the same tax breaks as their white peers." A pair of estate planners who testified introduced the idea of taxing swollen wealth to replace stolen wealth and showed that the racial wealth gap widened after 1981, when the biggest tax cut in America's history was enacted. They cited Federal Reserve figures from 2019 that showed the average white household had $812,000 more wealth than the average Black household.
Wow.
Yeah, that was an interesting discussion from the tax experts at the the meeting in San Diego. But my thing is, Uncle Sam is not off the hook. This is not some philanthropy project. Yes, they could set up this fund in addition to what needs to come from the federal government, but definitely not as a replacement. And one interesting idea that they also have, these tax experts, was setting up a status like a 501c3, but calling it 501c40, calling it a 501c40, kind of modeled after the 40 acre and a mule promise, which would be interesting, way to get the reparations coffers up.
Absolutely. All right. So, if anyone is not familiar yet with the OMB, they are currently looking to disaggregate data based on some recommendations that have come from the community, and so they would like to hear from you. We're probably going to be posting this up hopefully somewhere on our social media so everyone can take action. Go to regulations.gov to get more information and to submit your comments. But yeah, this is something big, especially on the federal level, that could actually disaggregate people who historically have been oppressed in America, also known as, those who descend from U.S. chattel slavery. I know previously we've been classified as Black or African American. Some suggestions have been changing it to American freedmen, and or I think American descendants of slavery has also been put into the recommendations as well. So they definitely want to hear from you guys, and ladies. So definitely take a look into this, and once again, we will be posting this somewhere on our social media.
Yeah, so go ahead and like, subscribe, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all of that, fam. So you get all of the latest updates on what's going on out here as far as reparations and our disaggregation efforts.
Exactly. All right, that is in the news.
In the news.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but free people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations, allows for the construction of these policies and practices and systems and structures that continue to oppress us. This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, but I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR roof, don't tune in.